You're listening to The Whole Truth, a Resources Rising Stars podcast.
Hello and welcome back to The Whole Truth podcast. I'm Paul Armstrong. This week we've gone off to Chile in a manner of speaking, and we're looking at Andean. Andean is a silver explorer and developer that comes out of the Steve Parsons and Mike Naylor camp. The company's had a great run since it bought the Cerro Bayo silver gold project nearly 18 months ago. Things have sort of slowed down in a public sense to some degree because they've been flat out drilling. They've just put out some more great results. And I think what you'll see here is that the amount of low-hanging fruit in terms of the ability to grow the resource is absolutely enormous. As well as extending the known mineralisation in every direction, the company's also identified new areas of mineralisation it's waiting to drill. And of course, there's some growing interest among North American silver companies who are keen to grow their asset base. There's not a lot of options for those companies who want to grow through acquisition, and Cerro Bayo is certainly on their radar. Chief Executive Tim Laneyrie tells us that they're looking at the company increasingly. They're asking more and more questions about what they're up to. And at the same time, Tim just focuses on how they're going to grow this resource and the mining studies that they're underway. Tim gives us a good assessment of where it's going to, why he believes there's so much upside in terms of resource growth, and why silver is so hot at the moment. Tim, it's been a cracking run since you bought the Cerro Bayo project nearly 18 months ago, thereabouts. But in recent times, you'd say, the stock sort of has slowed down a bit. You've been flat out on site drilling. Do you feel that you're now about to go to the next leg in terms of resource growth, corporate interest, all that sort of thing?
Yeah, it has been a busy, year and a half to 2 years since we've acquired the project. As we said, we've grown the resource 340%. We've reached that critical mass phase where we're going to start looking in the background of, what's the next step in the company and evolution, which is, the study phase and looking at the restart in a number of years' time. So, yeah, we're definitely graduating to that next level from explorer to developer in the near future.
The silver space is getting hotter. The silver price has increased in the last couple of months. So there's plenty of bullish, forecasts for it to go to sort of, $38, $40 an ounce US. Do you feel that, you speak to these investors all the time. What are they telling you about the space and how they see the Andean project?
Well, most of the excitement is coming out of North America and Europe at the moment. And what we're seeing is that they're fairly bullish on the price of silver and the valuation of silver companies through there. And so they've had a greater understanding, a lot more understanding of the metrics behind the silver. So what we're seeing is, everyone's tipping silver to hit the $40 US mark in the near future. And that's most of the people in North America. So, we're pretty bullish on it as well, and the valuation of it's only going to increase in the future.
Now, you look at that price, you've got a market cap of, less than $170 million, so, and a resource of 111 million ounces of silver equivalent. What does that work out to per ounce, and how does it compare with some of the valuations that the North Americans are applying? There's been a lot of M&A over there, hasn't there? So there's a lot of metrics.
No, there is, and a lot of them are not well understood in Australia as well. So the average deal metrics out of North America for the last 3 months, out of the last 6 deals, you've got the Mag Silver, the Adriatic deal, Endeavour Silver, and a lot of the other companies core mining as well. So the average metric for sale for a near producing to producing asset is somewhere between $1.50 US to $14 US a silver equivalent ounce. So in respect, that would put a $2.10 Aussie price per resource ounce. So on the most lowest value metric, we are undervalued on that. And putting that into perspective, that's probably only valuing our infrastructure we have on site, not the resource as well.
So apply that metric of $2 Aussie per silver equivalent ounce resource. If you were to do that on your resource,
that would put us at about $340 million market cap if we use the lowest valuation.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
And so compared to your current of 165 or something. So really the upside just applying some of these valuations. Now, there's been some pretty big turnover in the stock in recent days. One day I think it was 3 million. What's driving that?
I think it's the factor of coming into the end of the year, silver is running hot at the moment, as high as it's been in a number of decades. So what we're seeing is that the Australian market is transitioning to the North American market. So a lot of the Australian retail and some of the institutions starting to come to the end of the year and take money off the table. But what we're finding is all of this Australian money is flowing straight in to be bought by the North American institutions.
So the North American institutions are soaking up the stock, basically.
Effectively, and we're seeing a lot of big North American institutions coming onto the register, soaking up all this stock that's coming from the Australian market.
They're building positions, growing positions?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So our register has changed significantly over the last year to a year and a half since we've...
Are they telling you why they're doing that?
They're all bullish on silver, and they want silver exposure through North America and Europe as well.
Right. So one growth, obviously, avenue of growth for shareholders then is applying these higher valuation metrics and the like. But of course, the more fundamental element that our investors would want to hear about is how you're going to grow this resource at 111 million ounces of silver equivalent. Now, you've just put out more results. You do have, a regular flow of results. You've got 3 rigs on the go, talking about adding a 4th. So there's plenty of drilling and news flow, but it's coming from various places, isn't it? You've identified a host of mineralisation well outside the resource.
Yeah, no, definitely. We have that sort of dual track strategy where we're growing the resource, but at the same time we have, a dozen geos scouring the ground. A 30-year project, you'd expect these things to be picked over well and truly. But as we said, what attracts us to the project is there's still so many areas within that 400 square kilometres that haven't been looked at yet. And we are finding kilometres and kilometres of new veins. As we, every time the geos go out, they seem to stumble over a kilometre new vein. And if you've seen our last results, some of them running up.
So how do they do that? Take our listeners through how a geo finds new veins that could grow the resource.
It's a bit old school. We have some really good prospectors and generation teams that have fallen out some of the larger silver companies in North America, and they know these systems like the back of their hand. So a lot of it is the old school, walk the ground and just purely investigate these structures. And the other is what we've been doing, the geophysics and regional programs such as that to identify these broad structures, and then the teams hit the ground and literally just walk the ground.
Right, and pick up samples, presumably.
Yeah, well, pick up samples, and a lot of these veins are sticking out of the surface, so metre-wide veins just, as I said, running for a kilometre across surface, so you can stand back and just see them running across the countryside. And these are in the shadows of existing mines as well. So
you've got 2 lots of exploration. You've got what you might loosely call brownfields exploration, where in your latest results you've pointed out that the drilling has extended the known mineralisation along strike at depth in places. You've also identified it in parallel places next to the existing resource and known mineralisation. So that obviously, is more brownfields, and there seems to be endless growth in every direction. I take it some of that will go into the resource update you're talking about later this year.
Yep. So our rigs have been busily drilling. So we've put out results from Pegaso 7 and Cristal of what we've been drilling recently, and now the rigs are moving down to the main historic big undergrounds, so the Coyitas and the Delia mines right now. And what we found historically, there was a theory, like a lot of mines in West Australia, where everyone believes the ore stops at a certain level, and we've drilled below that. And what we found is the ore just keeps on going and going and going. So, that's going to form the basis of a lot of the resource updates in the future.
And then outside of this brownfields exploration, you've identified new areas, as you say, veins and things which you haven't got to drill yet, but obviously are highly prospective.
Oh, yeah. No, well and truly. Just the fact that you get these kilometre veins running up to 3% silver on surface, and then we've done the geophysics and all the alteration studies that show these things go to depths of 200, 300, 400 metres below the surface. So it opens up the prospectivity of the entire district well and truly.
I mean, you're applying the same formula in different areas.
Yeah, no, we are. And what we're finding is historically none of the base work that you usually do in these exploration projects, geophysics, alteration studies, basic mapping, have been done historically. So we're now having to rebuild all the information, and lo and behold, you do modern approach on things, and you find...
And you've got a good strike rate.
Yep.
When it comes to putting the drill into it.
Yeah, we are. So we're going to go through now and start building all the platforms for the long-term exploration campaign based on all the geophysics and mapping that we're doing. So that's happening in the background at the moment.
So you've got a lot of low-hanging fruit. I mean, in terms of extending the known mineralisation, these new areas, these extensive veins that you haven't even drilled. I mean, you must think that you've got more there than you can keep you busy.
And that's the problem. As I said, we're looking at the internal studies works on restarting and what critical mass is, and we feel we have the critical mass there already. So it's just about establishing a mine plan and working out that we have another 5 years of greenfield exploration that'll extend this mine,
So what is critical mass? I mean, I see some of the analysts talk about 150 million ounces of silver equivalent as being the threshold for the big boys to say, yep, that'll move the needle for us.
Yeah, so at the moment we've got 111 million ounces silver equivalent, and we all talk in silver equivalent, but we do have, of that, it's 47 million ounces silver, and we also have close to 800,000 ounces of gold. So we have the two hottest precious metals at the moment in the resource.
So it's almost half silver, half gold.
Yeah, well, with the extreme run on gold, it's probably about 55% gold as a valuation at the moment. So, we have the best of both worlds for our deposits.
And so when you sort of look at some of these bids these takeovers that have been happening, Tim, in North America, do you think that some of these big companies have got designs on Andean?
Certainly. I mean, the industry's running hot. There's been probably about 6 deals done in the last 4 months. So, there is a marked uptick with the current silver price, and you find that a lot of the bigger companies try to consolidate their positions, as you typically see in bull markets. And then you're finding a lot of the mid-tier companies are wanting to get to that next level. So they're trying to acquire quality projects, and quality projects are, already permitted, stuff with a mill that can be easily turned back on, and a substantial resource. So we tick all the boxes of those. So yes, indeed, we find a lot of inbound
Are they knocking
interest.
on your door?
Yeah, like from all the roadshows we do in North America and here in Australia, we're finding that there is a lot of corporates that are wanting to actually engage and have a chat. But yeah,
Do you get the impression they're building their own models? Obviously, these companies are notorious for doing their own work. They don't just accept it at face value. That they'll build their own models. They'll get across it.
Yeah, this is a historic mine. It's 30 years, so everyone knows the mine in North America. You go to North America, mention Cerebao, and a lot of the people already know it from core mining days and those times. So, there is a lot of historical information out there and a lot of knowledge around this mine itself.
Right. So do you going to engage with these people, or do you think it's all a bit too early for that?
At the moment, we are focused purely on growing our resource and then looking at transitioning through to doing the background study work to know scoping levels, which will then feed into future feasibility studies. So, our focus is getting this mine into production, but, that is a journey, and anything can happen in between.
Yeah, sure. But there's low-hanging fruit for your shareholders to be had before you would.
There is.
You really want to get someone to take it out.
There is still a lot of low-hanging fruit that you can't die wanting to know what's happening there.
Now, you've got a fair bit of experience around you in a corporate sense. I mean, the idea that somebody's going to come and want to talk turkey with you. I mean, you've got David Southam as the chairman. Now, David's well known to listeners of this podcast. He's been around the traps, got a long history in corporate manoeuvring. Of course, Steve Parsons, major shareholder. So who's on the board that's going to give you some assistance alongside David?
Well, we do have a very well-rounded technical and support group in the Richardson Group, which is all the companies. So, as I said, we have Dave Southam on the board. We have Ray Shorrocks as well, who's on a number of the companies as well. Steve Parsons is one of our corporate consultants and assists us with along the journey as well. The team on the ground, so we have a lot of high-skilled professionals on the ground through our environmental permitting manager, our general manager on site, who knows how to operate large mines in Chile and build mines as well, and our COO on site as well. So there's a lot of skilled people in the group.
So what do the next few months hold there?
So we just released a lot of drill results that's coming out. So that's showing that the growth of Coyita is continuing. These rigs, we're putting a 4th rig in by the end of the year. So we're going to continue expanding all our brownfields resources within that shadow of the mill, which is our most high value targets. The generative team are going to keep on their work and build a project pipeline. So there's going to be a lot of forward-facing news coming out, but then in the background, there's going to be a lot of news around internal studies, looking at the options of open pit underground mine plans, which will then feed into the future permitting and restart operations, feasibility level study, and infill drilling to get this mine where it needs to be.
Do you have a timetable on the restart, or is that pretty well a piece of string at the moment?
At the moment, it's a piece of string. So, yeah, it's all going to be hinged on what we're doing in the background to understand, are we leaving the mill as it is, upgrading it to different sizes, which will then, once we understand that, we'll know what we have to infill drill, what permits we need in place. Like I said, we've already got the environmental permits, and we already have about 1 million and 1.5 million tonnes worth of material that we can potentially mine right now, still on old permits.
Now, you're getting some great follow among the analysts. I see there have been a few brokers' notes of late. What are they telling us?
They're valuing us considerably higher than where we are right now. So you have Canaccord and SCP that have pushed us just above the $3 mark, and Euroz Hartley's, who have us close just below the $3 mark. So they're valuing us significantly higher than what we're currently sitting on, sometimes, close to nearly 3 times what we're sitting there. And they've, a lot of their brokers have been to site, and they understand our exploration upside and what we're doing. So,
So they've got price targets of $3
Yeah.
versus just over $1 today.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
So they're obviously bullish. For one reason or other, they think there's plenty of growth.
Yeah, that's it. And as we touched on before with M&A, that's close to the lower number of what projects like this are actually being sold for.
Yeah, great. Well, Tim, it sounds like you've got more than enough on your plate to keep you busy in terms of some of that the resource growth potential there, and you might even end up having to field a few more hungry calls from some of these North American silver players. But look, we'll leave you with it, and obviously all eyes on the idea of a resource upgrade later this year, and whatever else might emerge on the corporate front. All the best.
Thank you.
You've been listening to The Whole Truth, a Resources Rising Stars podcast, produced by Resource Media, hosted by Paul Armstrong for Reed Corporate. Please note that Reed Corporate does not provide investment advice, and investors should seek personalised advice before making any investment decisions.